Hi guys, it's Miss Wicker. This is Chapter 6 screencast on iterations. We learned to make decisions in the last chapter, in Chapter 5. With Chapter 6, we're going to repeat statements, and we'll repeat statements with while loops. A while loop statement executes a block of code repeatedly, so you can do things over and over again. A condition controls how often the loop is executed. So the condition is between the parentheses, and it's in the while loop header. And then the statement is what gets repeated. Most commonly, the statement is a block statement, set of statements delimited by curly braces, and whatever's in curly braces, those statements will be repeated. So calculating the growth of investment, a while loop can be used for that. And we want to know when the bank account has reached a particular balance. We can use a while loop for that. So while, use the keyword while, and then in your parentheses here is your condition. While the balance is less than a target balance, some target balance, then we want to execute these statements in curly braces over and over again until this condition becomes false. So as long as this condition is true, it will execute these statements one after the other, come up, test the loop condition again, and if it's true, it'll execute the statements again, and it'll keep execute the statements until this condition is false, until balance is not less than target balance. Then it'll stop. Okay, execution of a while loop. So for this particular while loop, you're going to check the loop condition. So while the balance is less than the target balance, so it'll look at the balance variable to see what the value is, and if it's less than the target balance, okay, some target we're trying to reach. If it's less than that target balance, then it'll execute the statements inside the loop. So they're saying initially if the balance is 10,000 and you're just starting the while loop, so the years is 0, then you're going to execute the statement in the body of the loops. So it's looked at the condition, and since it's true, it'll execute the statements inside the body. So it'll execute years, so years plus will just increment years by 1. So since years was 0 here, it becomes 1, okay, after this is executed. And then it'll calculate the interest, double interest, it declares interest right there equal, and then it'll take the balance times the rate, whatever the interest rate is, divided by 100. So since the interest, since the rate is, I believe it's 5% or 5, it'll take 5 divided by 100. Is 5% times the balance, and that'll be the new interest, which is 500. And then it'll take this last statement will take the balance, which is 10,000, plus the interest that was just calculated, which is 500. And you can see it right here. So 10,000 plus 500 is 10,500. So you see the new value of balance shown here. Okay, so after these 3 statements are executed, these are the results of those variables. And then next you're going to check the loop condition again, so it'll go back up to the beginning of the while statement, and it'll test the condition again. Balance less than target balance. Balance is 10,500 now, less than a target balance. It is, I believe the target balance is 2 times the balance, so that's like 20,000, so it is less than. And if it's less than, then it'll keep executing the statements in the body. It'll keep doing this until this condition is false. As long as it's true, it'll keep executing the statements in the body. And once it's false, down here, step 4, after 15 iteration, it does it 15 times. It'll look at this condition, balance less than the target balance. Well, it isn't, because the target balance is 2 times the balance, which is 20,000. So at this point, the balance is 20,789, and it's not less than 20,000, so this is false. So then it will stop executing, and at that point, the years is 15. So it'll execute the statement following the loop, because it's done looping, because this condition is false, so then it'll print the years, which is 15. Okay, so that's how that while loop works. Okay, here's a class, investment class, that's going to have the loop incorporated into one of the methods. So here we have public class investment. Remember, our class name starts with a capital letter of investment. We have 3 instance variables. Balance, investment has a balance. It has a rate, okay, which is like the interest rate. And it has years, how many years it takes to reach a particular target balance. Here's our constructor. Here's our constructor comments. Constructor's investment object from a starting balance and interest rate. And for each parameter, a balance and a rate, we have a at param, a balance, a starting balance, and at param at a rate, the interest rate. And those values will get passed in to the constructor and will be assigned to your instance variable values. That's why we have a little a before the balance, because it's a different variable than our instance variables. So we have to make that distinction. So we have a balance is equal to balance. And it's really easy if you have your instance variable names and your parameter variable names right here, if you put just an a before the instance variable name. Okay, so then it'll be really easy to name your parameter variables if you put the letter a before your instance variable names. And so you just say balance equal a balance, rate equal a rate, and years equal 0. And then we're going to have a method here that has our loop that we just went over, and the name of the method is wait for balance, and target balance is a parameter. Okay, so value is going to be passed in from our tester class, and nothing's going to be returned. And here's our loop while the balance is less than target balance, and the target balance gets passed in. Whatever the user wants to pass in is a target balance, and then years is incremented, calculates interest rate, and then adds the interest rate to the balance like we saw earlier. Okay, so that's the wait for balance method, and then we have a get balance method that simply returns the balance. So that's just an accessor method. Okay, and then we have another accessor method, get years, that just simply returns the years. Okay, so once a particular target balance is reached, then you'll return the years it takes to get to that target balance. Here's the runner class or the tester class. We always have to test our classes out. Here's our main method, and we have initial balance equal 10,000. Final means it's just a constant. And remember, our constant names are all caps. And then we have another constant rate equal 5. Okay, so now we want to see what our investment, how long it will take for us to reach a target balance. So we create an investment object. So investment, invest, that's our object variable equal new investment, and we pass our initial balance of 10,000 and our rate, which is 5. And then we say invest dot wait for balance. If you recall, wait for balance, we pass a target balance in, and it will just increment years until a target balance is reached. So go ahead and pass 2 times initial balance, okay, which is 20,000, because our initial balance is 10,000. That's our target. So we're going to invoke that method. So it's going to run that loop until that target balance is reached. And then we're going to get our years, because our years has been incremented in the wait for balance method. And now we want to see how many years it took to reach that target balance. And so it's going to return years, assign it to years variable, and then we're going to display the investment doubled after years. We display the value of years. Okay. So the investment doubled after 15 years will be displayed. Okay, so what we have here is tracing loop example. So this is a different example here. You have your program code on the left, and you have your tracing table on the right. And this is just to show you that you can create a table to manually track your variable values when you trace the while loop. Okay, so I'm going to forward through our animation. So what we have is I is 1 initially, S is 0. While I is less than or equal to 10, well, 1 is less than or equal to 10 because I plugged in 1 for I, so that's true. So then it goes inside the body, and it executes this statement, S equal S plus I, since S was 0 up here and I is 1 here. So then it'll update the S variable to be 1. Okay, so it evaluates the code on the right and assigns it to the variable on the left. So now the new value of s is 1, and I will be incremented by 1, so it's no longer 1, but it's 2. So now it looks at the condition again. 2 is less than or equal to 10, because I plugged in the value of I now, which is 2, less than or equal to 10, that's true. So now s gets updated. So the previous value s was 1 plus value of I is 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3. That's the new value of s. So now I'm going to increment I. Okay, so it was 2, now make it 3. So now you can see how you can actually create a t-table with your control variables, or your variables that you are using in your loop. And to control your loop, I is controlling your loop, s is just incrementing inside your loop, and you can just trace those variable values. So then I is 3, 3 is less than or equal to 10, so then s was 3 plus I was 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, that's the new value of s. So there we go. Then we're going to increment I again, so y'all see how this is working. So 4, now I is 4, 4 is less than. So you can create a tracing table like this to actually see your variable values. Increment. And I'm going to keep going. 28, and we have 36. I is 10. 10 is less than or equal to 10, so I'll do it again. 5. Okay, and then that's the end. Okay, because 11 is not less than or equal to 10, it's greater than 10, so this is false. Okay, so now what we have here is a while loop flowchart, and this is the flowchart for the while loop that was in the investment class. So what we have here is the condition, balance less than target balance, and if this is true, this condition, if the balance is less than target balance, then we'll execute the statements inside the body of the loop. And then we'll go back up again to the while loop header with the condition, and if this condition is false, if balance is not less than target balance, if it's false, then it will end the loop and will not execute the statements in the body. Okay, here's some while loop examples. The first example just prints out different numbers. So I is 5 while I is greater than 0. So while 5 is greater than 0, and it is, that's true, 5 is greater than 0, it will print 5. There we go, you see 5 in the output. Subtract 1 from I, so I becomes 4 now. Go back up to the while loop condition, 4 is greater than 0, that's true. So it'll print 4, there you go. And then you subtract 1 from I, so it becomes 3. Okay, so I'll see how this works, and then it'll keep looping. When I is 1, it'll loop, that's true, and then when I is 0, it will stop looping. Okay, so you'll get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for that example. Okay, the third example here, I is 5 while I is greater than 5. So 5 greater than 5, well 5 is not greater than 5 for that condition, so it will never execute the statements in the body, so there's no output. This fourth example, I equal 5, 5 less than 0, well 5 is not less than 0, so we'll never execute the statements in the body, so there's no output for that one as well. Okay, this basically shows you the syntax of a while loop. While, use the keyword while, condition, some condition is true, then it'll execute the statement. They give you some tips here on different things. You want to declare your control variable before your while loop, so it'll have initial value. Don't put a semicolon at the end of your while loop header. If you put a semicolon here, that just means the end of the while loop. So you'll have a while loop with nothing in the body, so you'll have an infinite loop. Line up your curly braces to make it easier to read, things like that. Common errors are infinite loops for while loops, so be careful of that. So for example, if you have years equals 0, while years less than 20, if you don't increment years, change years in your body, then you'll have an infinite loop. It'll run forever. So you must kill the program by like doing a Control Z. Okay, here's another infinite loop example. Here's another infinite loop example. Years equal 20 while years is greater than 0. So in here what you're doing is incrementing years each time, so it'll be 21 and then 22, 23, and that means this will always be true. It'll never be false. You'll have an infinite